Hello and welcome to the Stage of Greatness. I'm Danielle Francine, and I have with me today Lori Lasai, who is a human design alignment coach. And I'm so excited to have you here for all of the reasons. But yes, welcome, Lori.
Thank you. I'm so excited too.
Awesome. So Lori and I met through this is such a cool story. Through a podcast Facebook group. I had just popped in there one day. I was like, you know what? Let me see who's in here. And she had responded to one of my posts, and just the human design really is what jumped out at me, for you. And the fact that you were in a career, really a lifelong career for over 20 years, and you left that. You took the leap, you jumped off that cliff to start a business for yourself in human design. So, yeah, I really want to talk about all those things today.
Yay.
So,
Excellent.
yeah, so first, let's start at really like the jump point. What were you doing? What was your career, and what was that transition like for you?
Yeah, great question. So I was teaching for 26 years, and in the last about 7 years of my career, I had moved out of the classroom and was working with teachers and students alike. I was doing a lot of work around school change efforts and helping students with their own transition out of high school and into whatever was next. And I was really loving it. And also, I found myself kind of daydreaming a lot about, is this really it? And is this the only thing I ever want to do? And might there be something else, some other way that I want to contribute to the world?
Mhm.
And there were, I left in 2021. So, obviously we had been experiencing the whole shift with COVID and how that affected schools. And I can remember the sort of pivot point. I was in a meeting and we were talking about the upcoming school year. It was in the spring, and we were looking at schedules and, uh, you know, if there's anything that can really shift how schools run, it's actually the schedule,
Mhm.
because where you choose to spend your time is where you essentially are placing your values.
Yeah.
And we had done some pretty innovative things over the COVID year, and I was really excited to potentially continue some of those. And for a variety of reasons, new administration, a lot of fear, a lot of, fear of the unknown, especially, they opted to go back to, the schedule that had been in place before COVID. And I just remember this feeling, this like sinking feeling inside of disappointment, and also just like, "Ah, I just don't think I can do this anymore." Like, uh, kind of feeling like I was banging my head against a wall,
Yeah.
just that I couldn't seem to make the progress that I wanted to with the
Mhm.
shifts,
Mhm.
at the pace that I wanted to. So, I will say that I am married, I have a partner, and because of our partnership, I had the flexibility to be able to step away and build my own thing. So I definitely don't want to downplay that, because I know that, everybody's in a different sort of situation, and
Yeah.
financially, that's not necessarily feasible for everybody.
Mhm.
Um, but it's also not to say that it wasn't terrifying, because
Little
uh
cushion.
right, it was, yeah, it was such a shift. I had literally, I walked into a teaching job as soon as I finished college, and I went right to school after high school. So, I had, everything was in lockstep for so
Yeah.
many years of my life.
Yeah. So when you say that you found yourself daydreaming, like, is this all that there is? Is there anything more for me? Was that something that you had started to experience early on in your teaching career, or is that more recent?
Good question. I feel like it's always been innate in terms of the big dreamer. I've always been the kid who had these crazy ideas or these, create like big dreams, and plenty of people have always been the first to jump in and say, no, that's not possible. That's not realistic.
Mhm.
So I feel like that is just sort of part of who I am.
Okay.
But it was definitely something that I quieted, for the
Mm.
last 26 years, because I was sort of right. You get into this, I do the same thing over and over again every day. And not to say that teaching is the same thing over, because it's not. That's part of what I loved about that job, is it is the variety, and you never knew what you were going to walk into. But it was also, there are railings there. It's not like owning your own business where you are in control of how much money you make, and what your schedule looks like, et cetera, et cetera. Those kinds of things were already set.
Mhm.
So I think when you're in that kind of environment for such a long time, it's easy to forget, to kind of forget to even really dream bigger.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think too, I mean, at least for me, like when I owned my CrossFit gym, in New Jersey, it was like when I sold it, I'm like, okay, now what? Like you also carry an identity with what it is that you do. And the thought of moving past that, even if it's something that feels exciting, it's like, oh, okay, like, well, yeah. And what about what? It's the unknown.
Right. Who am I? Like when
Yeah.
if you're in any sort of social environment, one of the first things you say is what you do, right? Hi, I'm Lori. I'm a teacher.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, can I be something else? Am I
Hmm.
going to be able to, do that? Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, like with your husband, with your partner, when you brought that up to him, do you remember when you initially had, voiced your what you had wanted to do or possibly do? What was
Hmm.
that like?
Yeah. You know, it, it sort of came about. I don't know. It was a pretty easy conversation, honestly. I feel like he had sort of been wanting me to branch out, to consider other options for a while. So I think when I really, when I started to talk about just, like the decisions that were happening and where the school was headed and whatnot, the idea to leave came up pretty quickly. And when I can remember the moment when I was like, wow, yeah, I think I'm actually going to do this. Um, and it was really scary, like really, uh, I almost felt like I was floating, in this
Mhm.
in between space, like this space of not having any idea what was next, what could be, having these huge dreams, and also this feeling of like not having the same sort of safety and stability, beneath me, and having to kind of let go of some of that feeling of, you know, being having my own back and trusting somebody else to like have my own back. That was, yeah, this kind of storm, of feelings. But the conversation itself, I will say, was pretty easy, thankfully.
Yeah. Yeah, right.
Mhm.
That's awesome. And it's so like reassuring in a way to know that you have that support, right? If you need him in any way, that he's there for you. Like you had mentioned before, not everybody has that.
Right. No,
So
100%. That, having that financial support, I think, um, is key. And especially for me personally, I consider myself a very independent person.
mm,
I've always been about being able to support myself, being able to, forge my own path. And uh so taking that leap was uncomfortable. Uh,
mhm,
but I also know that, that's sort of where the growth happens, is when you are willing to go to those uncomfortable spaces. So, um, and building a business is not easy. I have learned so much over the last few years, but it's not like walking into another job and just, having a paycheck come to you on the regular.
right. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah. Exactly.
But in
Ex-
such a beautiful thing too, because it's like, for me anyway, I don't know if you've experienced this, but it's like finding your flow in your business and the way that you present that you're comfortable with, that people connect with you, right? They're like, oh my God, Lori, yes, I totally resonate with what she's saying. They come to you, and it's just like that. Once you get into that flow with your clients and more clients come, and it's just like you you're creating everything for yourself, your
yeah.
fulfillment, your money, your it's everything. It's beautiful, and I feel like you can't do that at a job
Right.
way.
Yeah. It's like trusting that feminine piece, right?
Mhm.
Ah, yeah, the flow that you mentioned, and the energy exchange, um, people being able to sort of tap in and feel like what it is that you have to offer, and really have the chance to resonate with it.
Mhm.
uh yeah, it's such a different way of running things, but I think uh relying on your intuition and trusting your intuition, that's the work that I do.
Yes, yes. And I'm so happy that you said the feminine, right? Because when you were talking about the conversation with your husband and like allowing the support and really just, being able to be supported if you needed that, what came to my mind was that's really being in your divine feminine, letting go of the control, allowing to be in the flow, allowing to be led, allowing to be supported. And the same thing when you're in your business. I feel like there's such a like, oh, I'm a female business owner, like badass, you're tough,
Right.
you make all
Boss
the
babe.
decisions, right? And it's looked at in such a masculine way. But really, I feel like the success really comes when we are in our feminine, when we're open, when we're vulnerable, when we're sharing, when we're flowing, when we're not trying to control every little thing.
Yeah. Yeah, being open to receive,
Mhm.
right? And knowing that it's safe to receive, and not getting too much into your head about what it means, and right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you allow your clients to be in that space also.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Modeling for them, and right, just helping them to even name it. I feel like, so there's so much there's a bit of a language barrier, even when you're talking about the boss babe idea, right? It's like you can be a woman, a business owner, but if you're going to be successful, you have to be, cutthroat, or you have to be this boss, right? Exactly. In lockstep with things, and follow a structure and be consistent, and et cetera, et cetera. But what I'm learning is just, it's more about rhythms, right, and flow, and tapping into your natural um, kind of sense of time and space, and even consistency. Like, it really does look different for people.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. I totally agree. Totally. So enlighten us to this human design. What was it for you that, I guess drew you in, number one, and number two, took you to the point where this was something that you actually wanted to, develop your expertise in and become a coach for others?
Yeah. Uh, so I first learned about it. I was actually taking a manifestation course, and I learned about human design there, and it was just one of those moments that it's almost like if you see the little ting, in your intuition, or a sparkle in your eye. It was like, what is this? I need to know all the things.
Yeah.
And so, I did my own research. I dove deeply. I listened to podcasts and read books, and then I found HD school. I did Katie Irvine's HD school,
Mhm.
uh, and her work and her teaching just brought, like, really laid the groundwork. It was so thorough, um, and it just felt to me like such great language to be able to help people trust that intuition. Essentially, like, when it comes right down to it, it's how do you trust yourself to create the life that you want to live. And it's easy to say, well, you just do it,
Mhm.
but what we ignore when we say, like, just go for it, is all of the what human design calls conditioning. But essentially, it's like all of the expectations that we've been raised with and grown up with, and experience in our everyday lives. It's like how others, how society, how your family, how your friends, how your loved ones, how they all expect you to behave or be or act or choose, or et cetera, et cetera. And where is the disconnect between how you've been living in accordance with what everybody else wants versus what you actually want and what's true for you? So I feel like human design gives you language to be able to explore that, and to be able to look at, something called a body chart, or a body graph. And when which is You get your body graph when you plug in your birthday, your birth time, and your location. So similar to a natal chart. And then you get this body graph, which can look a little like, okay, what do I do with this now? But it's the start to, it's a window into, okay, now you can start learning some of the language and learn what is it that this body graph says about you, and how your energy works, and how you're designed to actually thrive in this lifetime, in this world.
Mhm. Yes, I love it. All of the things are so cool. First, that you learned about it in a manifestation course. It's like, okay,
Right.
let's start there. Yes.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, like with human design, and so for our listeners that aren't familiar with it, um, like my experience with that. So one of my mentors, law of attraction, manifestation, right? He had a girl come in and she discussed a little bit about human design, the different types that you could be. And then same thing, here's where you get your chart. Go ahead, plug it in. So I had done she had read my chart two different times. And so, like you were saying, the language, it gives you the language and, allows you to really look at how you're designed versus what these expectations, family, friends, whoever has placed on you, and how you're living your life. I feel like there's a lot of freedom in learning about yourself and your energy centers and how you were designed. So, like for me, I have always had a business, right? And then other businesses, right? Other little things that I would dabble in. And I have thought countless times, like, why? why do I always need to have more than one thing? Like, why can't I just do one thing? Is it because I'm not committed? Like, am I not focused? Right. And then my ex-husband, he would also say, like, why do you need all these other things? Why are you doing all these things? So I always thought there was something wrong with me. And then coming to find out, being a manifesting generator, it's like, oh, that's what you do. You have all the things, you have all of this energy, and you're go, 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 and then rest. Go, go, go. All the ideas, always creating. I was like, oh, God, I'm supposed to do this. Thank you. And so much freedom in that. Now it's like when things pop up and I'm like, oh, yes, that's a thing. I just go for it. There's no second guessing or why am I doing this again or guilt or it's so cool.
I love that so much. And I think just listening to you reveal how that came to be and how you've lived your whole life this way, and then realizing like, oh, okay, this is actually totally in alignment with who I am and who I'm supposed to be, and now I can stop feeling so crappy about myself. So yeah, it's like a giant permission slip, to stop believing that there's something wrong with you or that you should be living by others' expectations, right?
Mhm.
Chances are your ex is maybe a generator type, maybe, or one of the other types that tends to be a little bit more focused on maybe one thing. But, again, like with human design, it's a combination of a number of different systems. So you've got the chakra system, you have the Chinese I Ching, the Kabbalah, um, you've got quantum mechanics and genetics. So it's like all of these pieces, astrology, make it really multifaceted. So your type is just one piece, even of, the whole. But that's kind of the beauty of it. It's like when you're able to learn the little pieces, and then they just unlock um this knowing, within you, like, oh, I knew that about
Yeah,
myself. I just thought there was something wrong with that, but
right.
actually knowing that there's nothing wrong with it, and it's this gorgeous, amazing thing, and I am so lucky to be able to be such a master juggler. You know, um I get so lit up about it because I think about people knowing their design and walking around being informed, being empowered, and just being like, yeah, this is who I am. This is what I have to offer. And feeling so excited about it instead of constantly trying to, like, be a square peg in a round hole.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so powerful to be able to actually step into who you really are.
Yeah,
Mhm.
exactly. And yeah, just realizing that there's nothing, like, not only is there nothing wrong with it, but how can you build on it? How can you use that type to, to create that life that you are so excited to live, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. That's the coolest thing. Totally. So, so with the different types, I'm curious if you would be open to give like a mini like rundown of each of like a brief synopsis so the people listening, right, if they've not ever heard of this, they could be like, oh, okay, that's what I am, and then Google it. Read more
Right.
about yourself, get your chart done, come to Lori, yes, do all the things.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So as I mentioned, type is kind of one component. And usually when you're first learning your human design, type, strategy, and authority are the three kind of components of it that are great to experiment with. And use the word experiment really intentionally, because all of this is just, it is a system, but it's always meant to be an experiment and to say, like, okay, take what resonates and leave the rest, and maybe you come back to it. Maybe something doesn't resonate because you're out of alignment, maybe it doesn't resonate because you have your wrong birth time. maybe it doesn't resonate because you're just like not in that space. It's not the right timing for you to really, use it in your life.
Mhm.
So there are 5 types, and they're energy types. So I liken it at this stage of learning about human design. It's kind of similar to, taking like the Myers-Briggs or the Clifton Strengths or Enneagram, or, one of those, with the main difference being that there's not really guesswork. So if you like to take those quizzes, I know for me, I always liked to take those quizzes. They were just fun,
Too.
like learning more about myself.
Yes.
Um, but I always struggled because I would be like, well, sometimes I'm like this and sometimes I'm like this. Like, why do I have to choose? Well, and so I would have a lot of like right in the middle answers. And then
Mhm.
I would feel like my result was always kind of like meh. It was like the gray area in
Yeah,
between, you know?
yeah, same, same. Like this
Yeah.
resonates, that does not know. Okay, me.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. So there's no guesswork. You don't have to, choose any answers out of like 700 questions. It's just when were you born? Where were you born? What time you were born? And the time is important. Um, Usually things that shift, from minute to minute will be things like something called the gates, and the more nuanced pieces of human design. But there are sometimes your type can shift even from certain times of day. So
Okay.
as much as you can, it's really good to have a particular birth time, a specific birth time.
Mm.
And I'm always a little like suspect of rounded birth time. So if your birth
Mm.
time, if your parents say you were born at 110, uh, that means it could be 108 or 107. And so,
Yeah.
minute to minute, as specific as you can get is great. So you plug in your time and then you'll be one of 5 energy types. So manifestors are one type. They're about roughly 8% of the population. And they are here to really initiate things. They're kind of like the fire starters. They get what we call urges basically, but I see manifestors as having like a direct line to the universe. It's like they get these hits and they act on them when they run it through their authority. Sometimes it can be hard as a manifestor to feel understood. And it's really important as a manifester to know that most people are not going to get you. And that's a good thing. Like giving yourself permission to be misunderstood, because oftentimes you are on the cutting edge. You are doing things and being in a way that other people just they don't quite get it yet.
Mm.
um and it'll be like 10 years down the road when they'll see, oh, that's where they were going with it,
I
meanwhile they're
get
on
it
something
now.
else. Yeah, so definitely trailblazers, and very just like powerful kind of aura.
Mm.
um so those are 8% roughly of the population. Our trailblazers, then we have projectors, who are the way showers, I guess I would say. They're like our guides, about 20-ish% of the population. And essentially, they are here to say, okay, the manifestor set the path. We're going to show you the way. We're going to like guide you along down this path. And they, have, like manifestors, kind of limited energy to spend on things. So they tend to be just really efficient and intentional, I would say, with their time and how they spend their time
Mm.
when they're in alignment.
Yeah.
uh so that's projectors. Sometimes people can see them as like bossy pants. they they have a knack for seeing the way things should be. They'll look at systems and they'll be able to just see like where inefficiencies are or how things could be better. And of course, they want to tell you that, but the way it works best for them is when that opinion is being invited in.
Okay.
So those are projectors. And then we have the generator types. So there are two different types of generators, technically. I like to say there are 5 total types. Some people say there are 4, with like generators being split. So there's just the pure generator, which is about 37-ish% of the population. And generators are here to literally do what lights them up. They have incredible like life force energy and can see projects through. And if the manifestors are here to kind of like blaze the trail and projectors are here to show the way, the generators are here to actually make the stuff happen. Like they get the work up and off the ground and get it across the finish line. They tend to be masterful at something. They tend to like dive deeply into something and work hard to master that thing.
Mhm.
And in general, when they're aligned, they are just really lovely to be around because they've got this like sacral energy that's bright and very magnetic. The trick, I think, for generators is not being pulled into the things that they don't love to do or don't light them up
Mm.
specifically,
Mhm.
just because they can. So it's this like dance with, well, yes, I have energy to do that because I've got like boundless energy, but if I'm constantly doing things that I don't love or that don't light me up, then I'm gonna burn out. So for them, it's really important to just find the balance of like, okay, are you putting your energy into something that really feeds your soul, or are you just kind of, doing the motions
Yeah.
to get to the paycheck or whatever?
Mhm.
And then the manifesting generator, as you mentioned, your type is about 33-ish% of the population, which, as an aside, you'll notice that like 70% of the population are generator types. So if all the generators were doing things that lit themselves up, we would be living in a much different world,
Mhm.
a very beautiful world.
Yeah.
So the manifesting generators are a little different from the generators with that life force energy. They still have that sacral energy, but it's like you said, multifaceted. They're like the master jugglers. So they tend to be much more efficient about looking for ways to accomplish a task with efficiency. So they tend to skip steps and then they'll circle back around and oh, I forgot that, or they're the ones that are putting the IKEA furniture together without the direction, right? And then
Right.
they're like, crap, I have 5 screws left.
How many times I've done that?
Right. And sometimes it works just fine. And then sometimes your shelves fall off and you're like,
Yep.
oh, good.
I
I
gotta
gotta
take
go
everything
back and
apart and start over.
right, right. But essentially, like efficiency is important, as well as also following that sacral toward the things that light them up. Tend to be like really intense people, in my experience, just
Mhm.
like have an intensity about them
Mhm.
because they're a little bit generator and a little bit manifester.
Mhm.
So they have that initiation energy, they've got that like spark, but they also have that kind of, the sacral energy to put behind it.
Yeah.
So yeah, they definitely tend to get a lot accomplished.
Mhm.
Um, and again, the idea of being in alignment with what lights them up is super, super important. And then the last type are reflectors, and they are only 1% of the population, so a very rare type. And they essentially are here to really experience what is happening in their environment, they are what we call them our cosmic mirrors, because essentially they're here to like mirror to the rest of us, um, sort of the health and well-being of like our collective.
Wow.
So, the founder of human design talked about having a reflector on every, in every organization, just to be, just to see like, okay, is the reflector having a good day? Is the reflector feeling the vibe here? And if not, there's something off. Um, so I think as a reflector, you can very easily fall into other people's expectations and conditioning, because what makes a reflector is if, when you look at your body chart, if all of the centers, which are the little shapes in the body graph, if all of those are white or not colored in,
Oh, wow.
which basically means that you are taking in and amplifying that energy from everybody else.
Mm.
So when you think about that, as that sort of human, you really need to have a grounding place, and usually that's in nature. So for reflectors, if, somebody in your audience is listening to this and they find out that they're a reflector, I would say the first thing they can do for themselves that would, help their well-being would be to spend time in nature and just really tune in to the lunar cycle is
Mhm.
really important for reflectors. And in terms of making decisions, they are supposed to wait for like an entire lunar cycle.
Wow.
Obviously, that's not possible for things like what am I going to eat right now?
Yeah.
but but in general, reflectors are meant to just look for patterns and rhythms in things
Mhm.
to help them kind of understand what's best for them. So yeah, I got them all. There we go.
Wow.
The energy types.
So reflectors, and I remember there was one type that was super, super rare. And it sounds like from how you explained it, a reflector would be like very, very sensitive to
Mm,
all the things, all the energies, all people.
definitely.
Okay.
Yes. Yes.
Mhm.
Empathetic, but not only, not only taking in other people's emotions, but literally adopting, identities and just all of the centers, all of the different energies. So another thing that would be really important for reflectors is just being around people who make you feel good. If you are in a toxic work environment or a toxic relationship, that's going to have, even a far stronger effect on a reflector,
Mhm.
because of all that openness and sensitivity.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
I thought I was sensitive to energy.
Yeah. Yeah, they're special people. It's pretty interesting. I know a few of them, and it's also really interesting to know how different they are, which is such a reflection of them in their own environment.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really cool. So when you met them and they found out that that was their type, was that a huge like permission slip for them?
Definitely. So I can give one example of a girl I did a reading for. She was in her early 20s, but so had just started on her career path, and she was working in the corporate world and just feeling really overwhelmed and definitely out of alignment, and just sort of wondering what to do about it, because she had, quote, landed a successful job after going to school, and from the standpoint of the onlooker, everything looked great. Looked like she had gone to school and gotten this great job, and um meanwhile she's in this really high energy, high stress kind of environment. and yeah, was not going well for her. So she has since taken some time off, which is great. And I follow her on Instagram, and she's posting all of these photos of surfing and being outside in the, you know, by palm trees and water and animals, and just makes my heart so warm, because I think she's, yeah, she's feeling much better. And what a gift to have learned that about herself this early in the game, you know, to be able to say, I, you know, I have these skills now, but maybe I need to use them differently than what I thought, you know, like maybe they aren't going to fit within the context of a corporate environment,
Right.
but how might I use them to support, you know, a lifestyle that I would like to live. So
Mm-hmm. Oh, I love that. That's so cool. And so that, I mean, that kind of flows right into what my next question was going to be. So the type of person, the type of people that you work with,
yeah.
or the like your clients, what is it like specifically that you do? I know you kind of have like a niche. What is that like? Who are
Yeah,
you
I
with?
mean, a lot of people come to me, you know, if they're just learning about human design, or they're curious, you know, I do kind of your basic like intuitive session. Um, but I've been finding that most of the people I work with are in some sort of transition, usually out of a job into what's next,
Mhm.
or you know, experimenting or considering what that might look like, you
Mm.
know. So so having lived that, and having the experience, and knowing now what human design can do to help you make decisions about what's next, I think I've been successful with helping people just sort of navigate that. And you know, it's not necessarily as easy as just making the decision either. It's like, how do you support yourself once you've made the decision? You know, there's a lot of just work that you need to kind of do to regulate, you know, your nervous system, and just kind of take care of yourself. Like when you feel that fear coming up, how do you how do you just care for yourself? So
Yeah.
so I help people kind of navigate that component of it as well. But yeah, it's usually people that are in some sort of transition from one thing to another, and kind of questioning, you know, what, am I
Mm.
going the right way? Am I, you know, what am I doing? Am I crazy for doing this?
Oh, that's so beautiful to be able to bring somebody clarity in that way because of how they're designed and
Yeah,
learning about that.
yeah, 100%. I love that word clarity.
Mhm.
It's so true. Because I think it's so easy to second guess yourself, right? Or feel disempowered, or, you know, feel like you have to do something, you know, like, well, I only have, you know, 7 more years until I get a full retirement. Like, why would I, you know what I mean? Like, why
Yeah,
would I change now?
mhm.
And, you know, from my standpoint, I'm thinking 7 years.
I know. It's so long.
Exactly. Imagine what you could accomplish in seven
Oh my,
years of your life,
yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
It's not, it's, there's no such thing as only 7 years left to retirement, you know? It's like
Mhm.
that is 7 years of your life to live in a way that you are thriving versus putting,
Holding on.
yes, yes.
Making I just gotta make it through. When people say
Ah,
that, I'm like, I just need to get through. I'm like, oh God, no, let's not do that. Yeah.
right. Let's not. Let's not. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Like, since when did that become the norm?
I know. I know.
You know, it's I feel like it's just a result of the way you know, our systems and
Oh,
our
yeah.
society. And
Mhm.
you know, we're slowly, we're in this wake up point right now.
Yes.
It's happening,
Yes.
and people are starting to question, especially as we live, longer and we are healthier,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah. Yeah, and I feel like too very strongly, the collective or the community that we're in, law of attraction, manifestation, the spiritual aspect of everything. I think that one of the most prominent questions that I've heard, and even that I ask, is I always want to know, am I on the right path?
Mm.
Am I doing the right things? Is this what I'm supposed to be doing? Right? What is next? Is there next? Am I right? Am I going in the right direction? So to be able to have something like human design and have somebody as beautiful as you with your energy, your knowledge, and everything that you bring, it's like just number one, being in your energy, right? And learning about yourself and having that it's basically a gift,
Yeah, that's so
right?
sweet. And
Mhm.
so true. Human design is a gift, and it shines a light. It shows you without any sort of question what your gifts are. It gives you, there's something called channels in your human design, which is where you have an easy flow of energy from one type of energy to another.
Mhm.
And that is a gift. That's a very specific gift that you have.
Mhm.
If you have no channels, as a reflector, for example, with a chart where you're only going to have gates activated, those are all components where you have like different types of energies, but the gift is really your ability to be that sensitive, you know which is there's no such thing as like, where have you been told that you're too much in life? It's like you probably have some definition in that center. It's, you are here to transmit that kind of energy. That is one of your gifts.
Yeah.
Where have you been told that you're too sensitive? Well, that's again probably where you have some openness in your chart and you're pulling in other people's energy and amplifying it. So, really, again, going back to the languaging idea of like, how can you talk about your gifts in a way that's more about energetics and what you bring to the collective and to yourself, um, just by being who you are
Mhm.
versus like, these are the skills that I have.
Oh yeah. Yeah, really being authentic and true to who you really are and being confident in it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Confidence 100%. Feeling that having that permission.
Mhm.
I feel like so many more people are that much more confident after understanding their design and experimenting with it and seeing how it helps them, come into alignment. So yeah,
Mhm.
super, super powerful.
Mhm. I love it all so much. It's so cool. So many things.
Yes. Oh my
Mhm.
gosh. All the layers.
I know, right? And we could just keep talking and talking and talking, and I'm sure the conversation would just get better and better and better.
Agreed. Agreed. It's so, yeah, I've loved chatting with you. It's such an easy, lovely flow of conversation. And I guess that's one of the things I'm really grateful for in taking this road in my life, is just the people that I've met. And you've just been such a gift. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I feel the same about you. Absolutely. So tell us how we can work with you. Like what is that process like? How does everyone find you? Tell us.
Yeah. Yeah. So I have a website, lorilisai.com. It's LORILISAI.com. And you can see what I'm currently offering there. I do private coaching. I also do, one-on-one, just kind of one-off sessions. And then I have bundles where it's sort of like an in between, not usually as long an experience as the private coaching, but it's a few sessions where we can kind of dive into your design, focused on a specific goal.
Mhm.
So those are kind of the three general things that I offer. And then I have a group coaching program that I'll be launching soon called
Oh,
Own Your Magic. That's really about,
I
you
love that.
know, yeah, like literally owning your magic. Stop apologizing for what where you think you're
Mhm.
too much, what you what you think you should be doing, but really instead step into, your greatness
Yeah.
and own it and learn like how to talk about it in a
Mhm.
way that other people can understand and, start to think about like what might you be doing with that.
Yeah.
So,
Cool.
yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's amazing. That's so amazing. And so on your site, do you have a place where they can find their chart, enter their information?
I do, yes. If you go right to the homepage, in the menu, there's get your chart, and there's some information like once you put in your information, you'll see the body graph pop up and you'll get kind of all of the basics of your chart, your type, your strategy, your authority, some
Mhm.
other details as well. And then I'll send you some emails after that for about a week or so that will give you like little tidbits each day so you can sort of
Nice.
start to dive into it and understand, what does it all mean.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, everybody, you need to do this. You need to go to Lori's website, have your birthplace, your date, and your specific time. Look at your birth certificate, put it in, and just start there. Once you get your chart, you're gonna be like, what is all of this? And once you start learning about it, your mind will be blown, and you're just the power that you get from it, the clarity, the confidence, the permission slips
Mm.
are amazing. So yes, go to her website and do that, and also reach out to her to learn more about yourself.
So good, so
You're
good.
welcome.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you so much. I so appreciate your time and connecting with you and your audience. Is so good. Just my heart is full. Thank you.
Yay, me too. Yes, thank you so much for being here. It's awesome. Everything, your energy, all of it, what you do for people, the way you serve. Thank you so much, Lori. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
All right, guys, until next time, this has been the Stage of Greatness. I will put Lori's contact information in the show notes. Don't hesitate to reach out to her, go to her site, get your chart, do all of the things. And until next time, be safe. So much love. Love you all. Bye.